What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another one of our game recaps. This will be for the slate of games on Sunday, December 17th. First one we're going to talk about is the Dolphins destroying the Jets 30-0. Trevor Siemian came in after Zach Wilson had a head injury. Siemian was 14-26, 110 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Zach Wilson was 14 of 11 for 26 yards. Neither of them had any rushing stats. Do not add Jets quarterback under any circumstance. Even if Aaron Rodgers comes back, I still wouldn't add him. Even in a good matchup, I don't think you can trust these guys the way that this offense is performing at the moment. Breece Hall, 6 carries for 12 yards. He also had 1 catch for 6 yards. Just a miserable day. Play him with the matchups, but understand that this is a possibility because he's had issues with inefficiency the entire season. So just kind of know what you're in for. He has the upside, but there's also a pretty low floor with Breece Hall as well. Israel Abanikanda got some work with the blowout. He had 4 carries for 8 yards, 2 catches for 11 as well. Dalvin Cook just had the 1 carry for 4 yards. He had a catch for 6 too. And Ashton Davis had a carry for -1. Xavier Gibson was the leading receiver. 2 catches, 29 yards. Garrett Wilson actually tied him, but he had less targets. So Garrett Wilson had 3 catches for 29 yards. Wilson had 4 targets. Gibson had 6. Alan Lazard also had 6 targets. He had 3 catches for 21 yards. Tyler Conklin had 4 for 18. The leading target getter actually was 7. Jeremy Ruckert had 2 for 16 and 2 targets. And Randall Cobb wasn't able to haul in any of his 3 targets. So what I was able to gather from this, we know that Garrett Wilson is the only one we really want to consider starting. Maybe Tyler Conklin too if you're at a really desperate point at tight end. But with the uncertainty at quarterback, maybe if Aaron Rodgers comes in, we could play Garrett Wilson. But if it's Trevor Siemian, I don't think we can rely on Garrett Wilson to win us our championship. It's the fantasy playoffs. We got to be really careful and selective about who we start at this point of the season. And someone with Trevor Siemian as their quarterback just isn't really going to cut it. Tua was 21-24, 224 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. No rushing stats for him. Mike White was 2 of 2 for 4 yards, 2 carries for -2. Tua just very matchup dependent, remains super matchup dependent. This is a solid game. The completion percentage was amazing. But, low yards, no touchdown. That had a lot to do with no Tyreek Hill, so just kind of keep that in mind. If he has a bad matchup, he's already bad, but if Tyreek Hill continues to miss, then Tua is just going to be that much less reliable. So just kind of keep that in mind if you're starting Tua during the fantasy playoffs. Raheem Mostert, 15 carries, 42 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. He also had 2 catches for 1 yard. A really good play, especially if Devon Achane continues to have these injury issues plaguing him. Almost didn't play in this game. He had 9 carries for 32 yards, also had 3 catches for 30 yards. These two are going to split this backfield, and I think both of them are startable, especially in a good matchup. But when Achane is coming into a game like almost not playing, then that's a really strong indication that we need to play Raheem Mostert that game. So keep Mostert in mind. If Achane continues to be limited in practice this week like he was last week, then I think that's going to be a stronger indication that Raheem Mostert is going to lead this backfield. Jaylen Waddle, 8 catches, 142 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets. This was because Tyreek Hill was out. If Hill is ever, if he continues to miss, if he misses another game or two, Jaylen Waddle is an absolute must-play. Keep him in your lineup no matter what the matchup is. Durham Smythe had 4 catches for 32 yards. The Jets kind of forced teams to throw to their tight end, so I would expect this to be one of the higher games for Durham Smythe. Braxton Berrios just had the 1 catch for 12 yards. Chase Claypool had 2 catches for 8. Interesting to see that. Cedrick Wilson had 2 catches for 2. Jeff Wilson had a catch for 1, and Raheem Mostert had the 2 catches for 1 yard. Next game, the Texans beat the Titans 19-16. No CJ Stroud, so it was Case Keenum time. 23 of 36, 229 yards. A touchdown and an interception. He also had 2 carries for 1 yard. Do not add Case Keenum. Hopefully CJ Stroud comes back so we can get some more yards coming from this offense. But this was really awesome to see Case Keenum pull out a game like this. Davis Mills getting sacked 1 time too. Really weird that he wasn't getting the start because he played so much last year. But I guess they saw enough from Case Keenum to, even though Case Keenum's getting pretty old, they still let him go. Devin Singletary, how about this? 26 carries, 121 yards. He also had 4 catches for 49 yards. Clearly ahead of Dameon Pierce, who only had 1 carry for 3 yards. Even if there is an injury here, like Devin Singletary, he is the guy to play. Definitely someone you want to consider playing for the fantasy playoffs right now. Dare Ogunbowale had a carry for 17 as well. Xavier Hutchinson had a carry for 5. Steven Sims also had a carry for 1. It's just crazy that Dameon Pierce falling off as hard as he did. And Noah Brown coming off of 2 zeros. Here he is. No Nico Collins, no CJ Stroud, no Tank Dell. They don't really have anyone else to throw it to at this point, so they gave it to Noah Brown. 8 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. Awesome stuff. If everybody continues to miss, if all the receivers do, like if Nico Collins is out again, then we play Noah Brown. If Nico Collins plays, then it's a little, you kind of want to be a little bit more selective with playing Brown. But he's a really good option to have on your bench at the very least. Dalton Schultz, 4 catches, 58 yards on 5 targets. Good to see him get back into the mix here. Robert Woods, 3 catches for 30 yards on 5 targets. He's looking like he's going to be, it's looked that way the entire year, but he's just solidifying that he's going to be that number 2 wide receiver behind Noah Brown if Nico Collins continues to miss. Brevin Jordan had a catch for 14 yards. John Mechie, let me adjust my chair here real quick. John Mechie had a catch for 1 yard on 1 target. Dare Ogunbowale did not haul in his only target. Steven Sims just had the 1 catch for 0 yards. Xavier Hutchinson not able to haul in any of his 3 targets is really interesting, especially since he got so much of the snap share. And Andrew Beck just had the 1 catch for -5. Will Levis might be injured, but it sounds like he's going to play next week. Even then, I wouldn't really trust him for fantasy playoffs. 17 to 26, 199 yards, no touchdowns, and interception. He also had 4 carries for 25 yards and a rushing touchdown. That's decent enough, but I just wouldn't rely on him, especially in the playoffs where you absolutely need victories. Derrick Henry really struggled in this one. He had 16 carries, but only 9 yards on the ground. He also had 4 catches for only 1 yard. He just couldn't buy a yard in this one. Really weird game from Derrick Henry. I still think you have to play him, though, because he is Derrick Henry. Just a really weird, the inefficiency is just insane in this game from him. Tyjae Spears played well, though. 9 carries, 30 yards. He also had 1 catch for 7. I wonder if he gets more involved because he does look like, I wonder if they'll work him in the open field a little bit more, some swing passes, because they have Treylon Burks, they have DeAndre Hopkins out wide, but I think Tyjae Spears adds an element of open field running that a lot of these guys don't have. So look for that in the coming games. I just wouldn't really trust it for fantasy playoffs. Treylon Burks had a carry for 2 yards. It's good to see him get more involved coming back from that injury. He was also the team's leading receiver, 3 catches, 62 yards on 3 targets. Really interesting dynasty stash, I think, for Treylon Burks, but I wouldn't really trust him for fantasy playoffs right now. Chris Moore, he had 3 catches for 39 yards. Chigo Okonkwo, just 3 catches for 36 yards. Continues to be under 10 points every single week this year. He's been getting a lot of love. It's very strange. When I open my ESPN app, I always see somebody recommending Chigo Okonkwo to me, and I never really know why because he doesn't put up points. But Nick Westbrook-Ikhine had a catch for 33 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, the leading target getter by a mile, more than double the amount of targets anybody else had. He had 9 targets, but only 2 catches and 21 yards. Just, you got to know what you're in for with DeAndre Hopkins. It's going to be super up and down. He's not going to get you absolute 0, but the lows are definitely a possibility with him. So keep that in mind playing D-Hop moving forward. For the next game, we got the Bucs beating the Packers by a good margin, 34-20. Baker Mayfield was fantastic, 22-28, 381 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 2 carries for -2 yards. Baker Mayfield, a really solid fantasy playoffs quarterback. He's been one of the best streamers of the year so far. You could do a lot worse than Baker. The Packers were top 10 against quarterbacks coming into this game too, at least as far as fantasy points. So, and Baker went out here, had a perfect quarterback rating. Just awesome stuff. Baker absolutely deserves some consideration for fantasy playoffs lineups. Rachaad White, 21 carries, 89 yards. He also had 2 catches for 50 yards and a receiving touchdown. Awesome stuff from him. He's going to continue to get volume here. Keep playing him every single week. Really great possible league winner stuff there. Chase Edmonds, 3 carries, 13 yards. No receiving work for him. Devin Tompkins had a carry for 1, and Baker Mayfield had the 2 for -2. Chris Godwin, ever since his wife complained on Twitter, he's just been going off. 10 catches, 155 yards, 12 targets. That'll totally get it done. Keep playing Chris Godwin. It's looking like they're really making an effort to give him the ball right now. David Moore, he had 2 catches for 68 yards and a receiving touchdown. Mike Evans was solid again, 4 catches, 57 yards, and a receiving touchdown. Keep playing him every week. K. Doughton, he had 2 catches for 44 yards. He's more of a floor play. Trey Palmer, the rookie, he's an interesting dynasty stash because Godwin and Mike Evans have had injury issues in the past, but I wouldn't go playing him outside of that. 1 catch for 5 yards here, and Colt Keith, the backup tight end, had a catch for 2. Jordan Love, 29 of 39, 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 2 carries for 1 yard. Not necessarily someone you want to have locked into your starting lineup every week, but you could do worse for sure. I would prefer Baker Mayfield actually to Jordan Love, but those two guys are very similar in ranking here. They're going to be pretty matchup dependent as to who's going to be above who. But Jordan Love is kind of less predictable because he can be a little bit more up and down than Baker Mayfield. Aaron Jones coming back from injury and getting a good amount of work here. 13 carries, 53 yards. A.J. Dillon went down, so Aaron Jones got a good amount of work here. 4 catches, 16 yards. Awesome stuff. If there's no A.J. Dillon next game, definitely play Aaron Jones. Patrick Taylor had a carry for 6 yards. He did not have any receiving stats. Actually, he had 2 catches for -4 yards. Apologies there. Jordan Love, 2 carries for 1 yard, and Kenyon Drake getting a carry for 0 yards as well. Dontavian Wicks, 6 catches, 97 yards on 7 targets. A really good dynasty stash. I just wouldn't trust him for production going forward because you just never really know. The only proven, consistent, reliable commodity in this receiving game has been Jaden Reed. 6 catches, 52 yards, and a receiving touchdown. He did it again. Led the team in targets. Keep playing Jaden Reed every week. Tucker Kraft is a solid option too as long as Luke Musgrave is out. 4 catches, 57 yards, and a receiving touchdown for him. Really good stuff there. Romeo is sadly a drop. 3 catches, 30 yards on 3 targets. Disappointing production the last couple weeks without Christian Watson. Malik Heath, 3 catches, 29 yards. Belt Melton had a catch for 7. Ben Sims wasn't able to haul in his only target either. So interesting stuff there. Hold on to Wicks in Dynasty and keep playing Jaden Reed. I still think, if you're desperate at tight end, play Tucker Kraft. But other than that, I think Jaden Reed is the only reliable option in that receiving room for the Packers. Tommy DeVito, 20 of 34, 177 yards. He also had 4 carries for 36 yards. We are not playing Tommy DeVito, especially against a good matchup. This was the best defense he's played this year, and he did not play particularly well here. Tyrod Taylor came in. He was 2 of 4 for 13 yards. I wonder if he's going to get some looks as we finish out the season here. That'll be something to watch. Even more the reason to leave Tommy DeVito on the wire. Saquon Barkley, 9 carries, 14 yards. He also had 2 catches for 23 yards. Super disappointing stuff here, but I still think you got to play Saquon Barkley every week. He's going to be the clear lead dog in this backfield. The Saints just got up early, and the game didn't really. Tommy DeVito was rushing the ball as well, and he was a more efficient rusher too. Just wasn't the game for Saquon. I still think you got to play him in your playoff matchup if this game didn't hurt you bad enough to where you are out of the playoffs now. Matt Breida, 3 carries for 10 yards. He will only really have value if Saquon misses. Darius Slayton was the leading receiver, 4 catches, 63 yards on 8 targets. I would not add Darius Slayton because I think Darren Waller is going to emerge down the stretch here. 4 catches, 40 yards on 6 targets in a game where he was limited. He is a decent enough, a low-end tight end 1 option for next week. If you're starting him, that's not the worst thing in the world as far as your tight end spot. Wan'Dale Robinson, 4 catches, 25 yards on 4 targets. We can leave him on the wire in most scenarios. Daniel Bellinger had 2 catches for 13 yards. Also, his production is going to fall off as Darren Waller gets more snaps. Lawrence Cager had a catch for 9 as well. And Eric Gray, the backup running back, had 3 catches for 6 yards. Boomer Sooner there. Isaiah Hodgins wasn't able to haul in his only target. And Jalen Hyatt getting 3 targets and not able to catch any of them. Continues to have a super up and down season for Hyatt. Derek Carr, he was really good in this game. 23 of 28, 218 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 3 carries for -4 yards. You could do a lot worse than having Derek Carr as your starter. A really good streaming quarterback this entire year. A little underrated the entire season, honestly, because it hasn't always been there on the field. But as far as fantasy points, he's been getting us really consistent production. So good stuff from Derek Carr this year. Something to consider going into next season for sure. As far as probably not drafting Derek Carr next year, but he's going to be a really good waiver wire option. Taysom Hill, interesting game here. Not able to complete his only pass. He had 1 carry for 1 yard, only 1 catch for 4 yards. Again, Taysom Hill is going to be super up and down. Even if he has a huge streak, just kind of keep in mind that Taysom Hill can come back down at any point. And Alvin Kamara, 16 carries, 66 yards. He was also the leading receiver, 5 catches, 44 yards. 5 targets. Got to play Alvin Kamara no matter what the matchup is. Jamal Williams getting some more looks here. 8 carries, 24 yards for him. Also had a catch for 2 yards. I still think you can leave Jamal Williams on the wire. Juwan Johnson emerging a little bit. 2 catches, 38 yards, and a receiving touchdown. I still think we can leave him on the wire. Rashid Shaheed, a little disappointing here. Didn't get a huge game without Olave. 3 catches, 36 yards on 4 targets. We can leave him on the wire. A.T. Perry had 2 catches for 34. He's an interesting dynasty stash. Lynn Bowden had 3 catches for 31 yards, tied for the lead in targets with 5. Foster Moreau also tied for the lead in targets with 5, but he only had 3 catches and 13 yards. Jimmy Graham just keeps on getting these receiving touchdowns. 2 catches, 9 yards, and a touchdown for him. Keith Kirkwood had a 7-yard touchdown as well on 1 target. Crazy. Foster Moreau, Lynn Bowden, and Alvin Kamara all led the team in targets with no Olave. Rashid Shaheed had 4, but still crazy that there wasn't more volume for him on this game. Next game, the Panthers beat the Falcons. Crazy stuff here. 9-7 in a downpour. I can't believe this Falcons. I can't imagine being a Falcons fan right now. This box score is absolutely infuriating. Even with a rain game, Desmond Ridder, 12 of 20, 152 yards, a touchdown and an interception. He also had 5 carries for -2 yards. Clearly, we're leaving him on the wire. Even though this was a rain game, I still would leave Desmond Ridder on the wire. Tyler Algier, doubling Bijan Robinson's carries. 14 carries, 45 yards. Bijan Robinson only having 7 carries for 11 yards. Bijan, just 1 catch for 3 yards. Tyler Algier had 1 catch for 6 yards. I would definitely be begging the Falcons to fire Arthur Smith if I was a Falcons fan, because this is just ridiculous stuff. And they lost the game to a team that was 1-12 going into this. This is just nuts. Cordero Patterson, 5 carries for -2 yards. That will not get it done either. Jonnu Smith was the leading receiver, 2 catches, 61 yards on 2 targets. Kyle Pitts wasn't far behind, or actually he was pretty far behind, actually. He had the most catches, but only 37 yards on 3 catches. Led the team in targets as well. Drake London, disappointing stuff here. He's going to be super matchup dependent. 2 catches for 24 yards for him. Cordero Hodge had a catch for 10. Tucker Fisk had a catch for 9. Cordero Patterson had a catch for 2, and Van Jefferson wasn't able to haul in his only target. So just a total bust as far as the Falcons' offense was concerned. For the Panthers, Bryce Young, we're still leaving him on the wire. 18-24, 167 yards. Still love him in Dynasty, though. Hold on to him there. Chuba Hubbard, 22 carries, 87 yards. He also had 2 catches for 16 yards. A really solid flex play in the fantasy playoffs right now. Chuba Hubbard's getting all the volume here. Amir Smith-Marset getting 4 carries for 31 yards. He also had 2 catches for 1 yard. Bryce Young having 4 carries for 9. And Miles Sanders, 6 carries but only 2 yards rushing. 2 catches for 11 yards for him. Adam Thielen had 4 catches for 43 yards on 7 targets. He's still going to be the number 1 receiver here, but that can only get you so far. Jonathan Mingo, 4 catches, 32 yards on 5 targets. He's going to be pretty close to Adam Thielen, though. It's not like the clear number 1 receiver that Adam Thielen was at the beginning of the season. Tommy Tremble, 2 catches, 32 yards for him. No Hayden Hurst for the rest of the season, so he's going to be the Carolina Panthers tight end to add if you need a Carolina Panthers tight end for any reason. DJ Chark had a catch for 18 yards. Steven Sullivan had a catch for 14. And Miles Sanders had 2 for 11. And Amir Smith-Marset had 2 catches for 1 yard. All right, the Browns defeating the Bears 20-17. This is really this was a fun game to watch, but pretty sloppy at the same time. Justin Fields, 19 of 40, 166 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. He also had 7 carries for 30 yards. He's going to be super up and down. This was a bad matchup as well, so I would still play Justin Fields. Chances are, if you have Justin Fields, you probably don't have a good enough replacement. Unless you have like Brock Purdy or someone like that. I would play him above Justin Fields for sure. Rashawn Johnson was the leading rusher here. 5 carries, 36 yards for him. Velus Jones had 2 carries for 23 yards. Khalil Herbert had 6 for 8. Tyler Scott had 1 for -3. And Deontay Foreman, 6 carries, -6 yards. Drop Deontay Foreman. I do not trust any of these Bears running backs in the fantasy playoffs whatsoever. I would leave them all on the wire. DJ Moore, keep playing him, but this was a disappointment for sure. 4 catches, 52 yards on 8 targets. Tyler Scott, he had 3 catches for 49. Cole Kmet, keep playing him. 5 catches, 23 yards, and a receiving touchdown. That's really good tight end stuff there. Darnell Mooney almost had that touchdown at the end. Tied for the lead in targets too, but only 2 catches for 14 yards. DJ Moore remains the only receiver that we want to roster from the Bears. Robert Tonyan, a really ugly drop too. He's just not very good in my opinion. Joe Flacco, 28 of 44, 374 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Kind of came back down to earth a little bit in this one, but still super high yards, high touchdowns. We'll absolutely take this. Definitely in consideration for streaming during the fantasy playoffs. DTR also came in and completed a pass for 5 yards. Jerome Ford, he had 8 carries for 20 yards. He also had 4 catches for 11 yards. Just continues to give us a pretty solid floor. Kareem Hunt continues to be very touchdown dependent. 7 carries, 8 yards. He also had 1 catch for 12. We can leave him on the wire. And Pierre Strong had 2 carries for 2 yards. Amari Cooper, really solid stuff here. 4 catches, 109 yards, a touchdown, 8 targets. Good fantasy playoffs play here. David Njoku is an absolute monster. He might be a league winner. 10 catches, 104 yards, a receiving touchdown, 14 targets, just monster stuff. You got to play Njoku if he's on your roster because he is on an absolute tear right now. Marquise Goodwin had a catch for 57 yards. Cedric Tillman, he had 4 catches, 52 yards on 8 targets. A really interesting dynasty stash there, especially with DTR coming on. Elijah Moore, 2 catches for 17 yards on 3 targets. He's a very safe drop. Looks like that chemistry with Joe Flacco early on is starting to wean a little bit. Pierre Strong, 2 catches for 9 yards. Jordan Akins, the backup tight end, had a catch for 8, and Harrison Bryant wasn't able to haul in his only target. Next game, the Chiefs defeated the Patriots 27-17. Patrick Mahomes, 27 of 37, 305 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He also had 3 carries for -5 yards. Continues to be a disappointment relative to where he was drafted, but still, like if you're playing Patrick Mahomes every single week, you could do a lot worse than that. And Jerry McKinnon getting a passing touchdown, really interesting to see there. Completed 1 pass for 4 yards. For that touchdown there, he had 4 carries for 11 yards and 3 catches for 19 yards and a receiving touchdown. So very fascinating day there for Jarrett McKinnon. CEH is a good football player. I don't care what anybody says. 13 carries, 37 yards isn't amazing, but 4 catches, 64 yards, and an awesome receiving touchdown. Great stuff. If Isaiah Pacheco misses, he's a really good option. Rashee Rice is looking awesome. Getting into the Rookie of the Year conversation. He's not going to pass Stroud, but he's getting in that top 10 absolutely conversation. 9 catches, 91 yards, and a receiving touchdown. Keep playing him every week. Noah Gray, having more receiving yards than Travis Kelce is disgusting, but 2 catches, 37 yards on 2 targets. Justin Watson had a catch for 31. Travis Kelce, you still got to play him, but 5 catches, 28 yards is super disappointing, especially when he's behind in targets from Rashee Rice, too. Looks like Rashee Rice is slowly becoming the number 1 receiver here, which is scary as someone who has a lot of Travis Kelce. Marquez Valdes-Scantling had a catch for 17. Richie James had a catch for 17. Kadarius Toney having some weird games here. I'd be surprised if he was on this team next year. 2 catches for 5 yards and 4 targets for him, and the Belldozer was not able to haul in his only target. Bailey Zappi, 23 of 31, 180 yards, a touchdown and an interception. He also had 1 carry for 2 yards. I don't think Bailey Zappi has enough around him to really be amazing, even if he did have more skill than he does, so I would leave Bailey Zappi on the wire. Kevin Harris, how about that? 4 carries, 25 yards, and a rushing touchdown for him. We are leaving him on the wire. Ezekiel Elliott had 11 carries for 25 yards. He also had 5 catches for 21. A little disappointing here, but I still think he's a solid play as we move forward in the fantasy playoffs. Hunter Henry, 7 catches, 66 yards, and a receiving touchdown. 9 targets, led the team in targets. Interesting tight end option. I don't trust it 100%, but if you're desperate at tight end, Hunter Henry isn't a terrible option because he's still outpacing all the receivers here. Devontae Parker, 5 catches, 44 yards on 5 targets. Demario Douglas, his first game back from injury, also had a tough matchup here. 3 catches, 33 yards on 5 targets. He's more of a floor play than anything. Mike Gesicki had a catch for 7. Tyquan Thornton just had a catch for 5. Even in Dynasty, I think Tyquan Thornton is a drop. And Jalen Reagor, not able to haul on either of his targets. And Pharaoh Brown, just the 1 catch for 4 yards. Brock Purdy is amazing. The 49ers beat the Cardinals 45-29. Purdy was 16-25, 242 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Keep playing Brock Purdy every week, regardless of matchup. He's been phenomenal. Sam Darnold, 2 of 3 for 20 yards. He came in garbage time and had 2 carries for -2 yards as well. Christian McCaffrey, obviously we're playing him every week. Another superhero game from him. 18 carries, 115 yards, and a rushing touchdown. He also had 5 catches for 72 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. He was the leading receiver for this team. Just an unbelievable game for McCaffrey. I wonder if Tyreek Hill misses, if McCaffrey starts to push Hill for Offensive Player of the Year this season. That'll be something to watch out for. No Elijah Mitchell in this one, so Jordan Mason got some more looks. 5 carries for 20 yards for him. Deebo Samuel had a carry for 11 yards. He also had 4 catches for 48 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Got to play Deebo Samuel every week. Got to play George Kittle every week too. Even though this wasn't great, 2 catches, 54 yards. He has a level of upside that most tight ends just don't have. Brandon Ayuk, 3 catches, 37 yards on 5 targets. He's going to be more up and down than I think people want to give him credit for. Kyle Juszczyk only got the 2 catches for 26 yards. Juwan Jennings had 2 catches for 25, and Ronnie Bell wasn't able to haul in his only target. Kyler Murray, 26 of 39, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. He also had 6 carries for 49 yards. The rushing is what's going to bring his value up. This was a tough matchup, but still, he was able to get you decent enough play here. I think Kyler Murray is a solid start for the fantasy playoffs. James Conner, 14 carries, 86 yards, and a rushing touchdown. He also had 3 catches for 3 yards. Disappointing that he's not able to get more yards through the air, but love to see the 3 catches. Love to see the receiving or the rushing touchdown. Awesome stuff there. Keep playing James Conner as you normally would. Amari DiMercado broke a long one late in the game. 4 carries, 64 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Keep him on the wire. Michael Carter, 3 carries for 27 yards. He also had 3 catches for 10 yards. If something happens to James Conner, look out for Carter to get a little bit more love than DiMercado would be my guess. Greg Dortch had a carry for 5, and Rondale Moore had a carry for 3 as well. Trey McBride went nuts. 10 catches, 102 yards on 11 targets. Him and Kyler Murray are just totally in sync right now. You got to play Trey McBride every week. Elijah Higgins had 4 catches for 44 yards and a receiving touchdown. Jeff Swaim had a catch for 26 yards. Greg Dortch, 2 catches for 15 yards. I think he's a very safe drop/leave on the wire. Rondale Moore, same thing, 2 catches for 5 yards. They're trying to get him worked into the mix a little bit more, but still, it's not the production isn't reliable enough to do anything with him. Hollywood Brown left this game early. You just can't trust him right now. It's been super disappointing. It doesn't make any sense because him and Kyler have a really solid relationship. So long term, I still think that connection is going to be there, but it's just not happening. Whether it's Hollywood's injury or what, it's not going to happen this season. Zach Pascal not able to haul in any of his 4 targets, and Michael Wilson not able to haul in any of his 3. So weird stuff there from the Cardinals receivers in this game. Jacoby Brissett getting some more looks, and he looked great. 8 of 10, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 carries for 9 yards. I wonder if he'll be the starter next week because Sam Howell looked like crap. 11 of 26, 102 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He also had 3 carries for 22 yards. I think Sam Howell is a drop right now, honestly. With how Jacoby Brissett played in this game, I would not be surprised at all if he was named the starter going forward. And hopefully that gets a little bit more reliability in this passing game too, because so far, Terry McLaurin we know is the number 1 receiver based off talent, but he just hasn't been getting targets like that. So maybe Jacoby Brissett helps with that. He had a really good connection with Amari Cooper last season. Chris Rodriguez, he had 10 carries for 35 yards in this one. Taking advantage of no Brian Robinson. Antonio Gibson had 4 carries for 15 yards. He also had 5 catches for 20. His receiving game work is going to give him more value than anything if Brian Robinson continues to miss. Tressway getting a carry for 0 yards. How about that? And Jonathan Williams getting the 1 carry for -2. Like I said earlier, Terry McLaurin, if Jacoby Brissett plays, I think he's going to get a boost here. 6 catches, 141 yards, and a receiving touchdown on 12 targets. Awesome stuff. If Brissett plays next week, I definitely would consider starting McLaurin. Bordering on you got to start him sort of territory there. Curtis Samuel's been really hot here lately. 5 catches, 41 yards. 2 touchdowns through the air. Awesome stuff. 9 targets. In really desperate lineups, Curtis Samuel's becoming a really good desperation play. Almost getting out of desperation play territory because he's been so good. Jahan Dotson, just the 1 catch for 12 yards. Logan Thomas had 1 catch for 5, and Byron Pringle just had the 1 catch for 5 as well. So, interesting stuff there. Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel, and Terry McLaurin getting all the love. As far as receiving work, hopefully Jacoby Brissett starts to start here. Matthew Stafford, 25 of 33, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns for the air. He also had a carry for 2 yards. So, Matthew Stafford, this was an amazing matchup for him. Good completion percentage. Hope that the yards were a little bit better, but we got the touchdowns, no interceptions. He's a really reliable player for the fantasy playoffs. Kyren Williams, you got to play him no matter what the matchup is. He's just been electric. 27 carries, 152 yards. He also had 5 catches for 3 yards. He had the rushing touchdown to go. Just amazing stuff there. Got to play him. No-brainer start, clearly. Demarcus Robinson had a carry for 23 yards. He also had 2 catches for 44 yards and a receiving touchdown. I still would leave him on the wire. Royce Freeman, 6 carries for 16 yards for him. Puka Nacua having 2 carries for 3. Cooper Kupp is officially back. 8 catches, 111 yards, and a receiving touchdown on 8 targets. Awesome stuff. Got to play Cooper Kupp every week. Puka, he's becoming that clear number 2 receiver, but still, really good production. 5 catches, 50 yards, tying Cooper Kupp's target share. He didn't get the receiving work or the fantasy points that Cooper Kupp did, but we'll still take it because Stafford has been playing so well here lately. Tyler Higbee had 4 catches for 36 yards. I think he's just a desperation play at tight end. Davis Allen, I really like stashing him in Dynasty, but just a 1 catch for 14 yards. This is a really impressive 14 yards, so keep an eye on Davis Allen for the future. Dak Prescott, he struggled here, and the Bills beat the crap out of the Cowboys 31-10. Prescott was 21-34, 134 yards, no touchdowns and an interception. He also had 4 carries for 27 yards. Tough to trust Dak after this game, but he's been so great leading up to this game where we can still consider him a start for the fantasy playoffs if you were able to overcome this performance here. Tony Pollard, he had 11 carries for 52 yards. Also had 2 catches for 5 yards. A little disappointing here, but still definitely in starting consideration. Rico Dowdle, 3 carries for 4 yards. Also had 2 catches for 8. Really only in consideration there if someone happens to Pollard. Hunter Lepke had a carry for 3. CeeDee Lamb, 1 carry for 3 yards, had a rushing touchdown. Also had 7 catches for 53 yards and 10 targets. Got to play CeeDee Lamb every single week regardless of matchup. Jake Ferguson, 6 catches, 44 yards, and 8 targets. Really solid tight end stuff here. Like, if you have Jake Ferguson as your tight end starter every week, you could do a lot worse. You could do better, but you could do a lot worse for sure. Brandon Cooks, I think, is a drop. He's going to be 2 up and down for the fantasy playoffs. 2 catches for 10 yards for him. Michael Gallup just had a catch for 9. Peyton Hendershot coming back and having a catch for 5. And Tony Pollard just had the 2 catches for 5. Josh Allen, really weird game. 7 of 15, 94 yards passing touchdown. He also had 8 carries for 24 yards and a rushing touchdown. Obviously, this is the low end of what Josh Allen can do for us every week, so I still would play him every week. James Cook is breaking out big time, though. You got to start him regardless of matchup. 25 carries, 179 yards, and a rushing touchdown. He also had 2 catches for 42 yards and a receiving touchdown. This was the number 1 defense against running backs for the season coming into this game, and James Cook just tore him up. So I think you got to play him no matter what the matchup is. He's just been phenomenal here these last few games. Ty Johnson, 9 carries for 54 yards. He seems to be overtaking Latavius as that number 2 back, but Latavius was able to vulture a touchdown. He had 5 carries for 11 yards, and Kyle Allen came in the blowout. Had 2 carries for -2. Stephon Diggs, disappointing stuff here. 4 catches, 48 yards on 5 targets. He's had some rough matchups here lately. If trades were still a thing, he'd be a huge buy low. I still think Stephon Diggs is going to be a really great asset, help people win some leagues here down the stretch. this is going to be the low end of what Stephon Diggs does every week. Ty Johnson had a catch for 4, and nobody else had any receiving stuff. No Khalil Shakir work, no Gabe Davis work, no Dalton Kincaid work. So just a very odd game all around for both of these teams here. Uncharacteristic both ways. Last game of the night, Sunday Night Football. The Ravens defeated the Jaguars 23-7. Lamar Jackson looks like the MVP right now. 14-24, 171 yards. Passing touchdown and an interception. He also had 12 carries for 97 yards on the ground. He looks unstoppable. This team looks unstoppable. I think they're going to the Super Bowl. Keaton Mitchell tore his ACL, unfortunately, but before he went down, 9 carries for 73 yards. He also had 2 catches for 15. Good stuff there, but he is a drop because of that injury. Gus Edwards, he's going to be really valuable down the stretch here. 16 carries for 58 yards and a rushing touchdown. He also had a catch for 11 yards. And Justice Hill getting more work after the Mitchell injury. He had 5 carries for 23 yards. And he wasn't able to haul in his own target either. Isaiah Likely, the leading receiver by a lot. 5 catches, 70 yards, and a receiving touchdown. He looks really good. Definitely a strong tight end start every single week. Rashad Bateman, leave him on the wire, but he had 3 catches for 39 yards. Charlie Kolar, how about that? Had a catch for 15. Out receiving Odell Beckham and Zay Flowers. Beckham, 1 of 14. Flowers, 1 of 7. Just a total wash for both of these guys. Hopefully you weren't starting either of them, but going forward, if you have an alternative to a Ravens receiver other than Isaiah Likely, I would definitely understand going that route. Nelson Aguilar wasn't able to haul in his only target either, so just mainly all Isaiah Likely in this one. Trevor Lawrence still playing through that high ankle sprain. He was 25 of 43, 264 yards, a touchdown, and no interceptions. He was also the team's leading rusher in this one. 4 carries, 41 yards for him. He's a really solid start. He's going to rack up some yards on the ground and through the air as we move forward in the season. He's been really good. Travis Etienne having some efficiency issues, 10 carries for 31 yards. He also had 4 catches for 28. I still think he's a start every week because he's the clear lead dog in this backfield. Dearness Johnson had 2 carries for 5, and Tank Bigsby had 1 carry for -2. Jamal Agnew, he had the long 65-yard catch, and that's enough to make him the leading receiver for the Jags. He had 2 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. Zay Jones, 5 catches for 59 yards on 8 targets. He's really emerging with Christian Kirk out, so if you're desperate at receiver, I think Zay Jones is a solid option for you. Calvin Ridley, the leading target getter with 12, but only 5 catches for 39 yards here. Tough matchup, but he's another really solid fantasy playoff start. Luke Farrell had a catch for 28. Evan Ingram, disappointing stuff here, 4 catches for 28 yards, but I still think we're starting him. Parker Washington, he's emerging a little bit with Christian Kirk out, 4 catches for 12 yards for him. And Elijah Cooks, the former Nevada Wolfpack, San Jose State Spartan, he wasn't able to haul in his own target. Hopefully we see a little bit more of Elijah down the stretch. And that's going to do it for me, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Follow at We Are Drafting on Instagram. We'll have the Week 16 ads and drops out later tonight after the games are over, so check those out. I will see you over there, and thank you again so much for watching.